Hello everyone, Janet Liebrocker here. I just wanted to apologize. I haven't done a video in quite some time, but I just got done with a 5-day stint at work. I can't exactly remember if I ever told you that I work at a Michael's store, doing stocking, which means very early mornings for me. The 5 days that I worked, 4 days I've had to wake up at 4 a.m. to be in at work at 5, and then yesterday, on Friday, is our truck day, so I had to wake up at 6 and be there by 7. So I do apologize if I lose my train of thought, or I suddenly go quiet, because I am really, really exhausted. I wanted to talk about a favorite manga series of mine. And I was thinking about it as I was actually looking at one of the books that I got from the library. It's a manga series called Hearts no Kuni no Alice, also known as Alice in the Country of Hearts. There's also iterations of it in the Country of Clover, Joker, and Diamonds. The manga series is based on a dating sim from Japan of the same title. Basically, it's Alice in Wonderland, but with quite a few twists. I'm probably not exactly going to go into a whole lot of detail on what those twists are, but perhaps I might, as I'm showing you some of my favorite books, and which pretty much center around my favorite guys in the cast, the ones that I ship Alice with the most. First one is actually a it's kind of like a it's called Alice Love Fables Toy Box. Here it is right here. Along with Alice in the Country of Hearts and Clover, they also have short stories for other Quinn Rose games like Arabian's Lost and Crimson Empire. Quinn Rose is the maker of the Hearts no Kuni series as well as these other titles. I guess they're all dating sims. I just know about Alice for sure. Toy box. The Alice stories covered in toy box have her paired with, let me see. Looks like they pair her with the Bloody Twins, Dee and Dum. Julia Spawn Ray, who's one of my absolute favorite characters. The thing about the Country of Hearts and pretty much this entire world in Wonderland is that these characters are pretty much crazy. And Alice is, she's kind of like your every woman, or your everyday woman and such, but she's kind of cynical when it comes to romance and such. So if it isn't quite obvious, but the Hearts series is pretty much catered to romance and such and all that, and I'm a hopeless romantic at heart. I really like Julius. He's just pretty sane compared to everyone else. There's a short story in here that pairs her with Elliot March, the March Hare. He's another one of my favorites to ship Alice with. Funny thing about Elliot is that he denies he's a rabbit or a hare. He calls himself a dog. I'm thinking, sure, Elliot, those ears aren't fooling anyone. I think it's probably because he has probably a huge issue with Peter White, who's the White Rabbit, because Peter's like everything wrong with guys. He's pretty aggressive when it comes to Alice. Peter's kind of an enigma to me because I don't even know what he is. Because in a lot of the manga that I've read with him, he's usually implies that he knows Alice from somewhere outside Wonderland before he dragged her there. In my opinion, I think he's supposed to be like the personification of Sunday afternoon, which is time that Alice spent with her older sister Lorena. This other short story in here pairs her with Gray Ringmark the Lizard. I'm starting to really like Gray. Like Julius, he's one of the more sane members of the role holders in Wonderland. It's just kind of funny how he interacts with Alice in stories that pair him with her. Another short in here actually pairs her with Peter, and he's about to get his own standalone story sometime called Afternoon Tea, I think. I forgot. There's another one in a toy box where they pair her with Blood Dupre, who's the Mad Hatter. In the main Country of Hearts manga, which was the adaptation of the game itself, it looks like Quinn Rose pretty much ships Alice with the Mad Hatter. But the cool thing about this particular series is that all the pairings are canon. Even if you swing in the way of Yuri liking, which I don't, you could potentially say that Alice and Vivaldi, the Queen of Hearts, have a thing going on. But personally, I see them as more like sisters, because that's how the relationships that I've seen in here seem to play out. Vivaldi's usually giving her advice about stuff. That was all the stories that was in Alice's Love Fables. And here comes the next one. This one's the newest one that I got. It's called Alice in the Country of Hearts Junk Box Stories. My favorite artist for this series is Momonosuke Fujimaru. His art style is pretty cool. But all these different manga have various different artists, but Momonosuke Fujimaru has done a lot of them, and I really, really love his art style. Junk Box Stories is kind of like Toy Box, only this time it's purely for the Heart series. This has short stories that pair Alice with Gray, Blood, Boris, Ire, who's the Cheshire Cat, Joker. Joker's kind of growing a bit on me, mainly White Joker. You could say the Joker kind of has like a split personality. It's black and white Joker. There's a story here that pairs her with the Bloody Twins, as well as Ace, who's the Knight of Hearts, who I kind of have like a love-hate relationship with, because I'll actually explain that in a minute, because a couple of my other books center around Ace. At least one of them does, anyway. The other story in here pairs her with the last story here pairs her with Piers, who's the Dormouse. Kind of a cute kid, really. He's the sweeper for the Hatter Mafia, so he's got his fair share of enemies. But that's Junk Box Stories for you. Thanks to titles like that center around Gray, I'm starting to ship him and Alice together, but here's the very first one that I ever read because I was bored. And it also got me really into Momonosuke Fujimaru's art style. It's called the Clockmaker Story. Julius doesn't really have a counterpart in Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, but you could say he's supposed to be like Father Time. In this version of Wonderland, everybody has clocks instead of hearts, and which means that they're replaceable. If somebody's clock breaks, their clock is brought to Julius, who repairs it, and that clock is given a new life. It becomes a new person with no memories of their past life. Julius is kind of hated by residents of Wonderland. They call him the Undertaker. He's just a very serious guy. You never would have guessed that he's really part of this insane world, because he's mostly calm and collected, and because he's not really well liked by just about anybody except perhaps Ace. Well, actually, definitely Ace. Ace says that Julius is really his only friend, and I guess the same could be true for the Clockmaker himself until Alice comes in. Julius is a bit of a hermit. He lives in the Country of Hearts in the Clock Tower, which is a neutral zone. The other thing about this version of Wonderland is that it's a constant war zone between 3 domains. With the Country of Hearts, it's the Hare Mansion, Hearts Castle, and the amusement park, with the Clock Tower being a neutral zone. The Clockmaker Story actually introduced me to a lot of the characters that I would come to know and love from this series. Aside from Julius, it introduced me to Ace, pretty much just everybody else that existed in the Country of Hearts. So that's the Clockmaker Story. Since I didn't mention it before, I'm not really planning on telling you what any of these stories are really about. Just know that it's they're pretty much just shipping stories with Alice. And if you find any of them interesting, or if you like manga based on dating sims, then this is a good series. My next book is also from the Country of Hearts, and it also centers around Julius. It's called Labyrinth of Thorns, and the artist is Oi Kurihara. The art style is pretty good. Like I said, I think Fujimaru is probably going to be my universal favorite, and I think he needs to do some more stories for like Elliot and Gray, because as far as I know, he's never really done art for any of them, for either of them. Again, Love Labyrinth of Thorns just tells us what we already know from the Clockmaker Story about how much Julius is a hermit in his job and such. The thing about these standalone stories is that they're not connected to each other in any way, but a lot of these standalone manga also have multiple volumes, like the Cheshire Cat Waltz, which centers around Boris and Alice. The spans 7 volumes. But most of and actually all the books that I own are the single volume books, mainly due to space. I'm running out of bookshelf space, and I don't have any room in my room that you can see behind me. I have no space for another bookshelf. I'd have to wait until I get my own place so I can get a new bookshelf and continue to collect these. Because one of the series that I got from the library is called A Knight's Knowledge, which focuses on Ace. But it spans 3 volumes, and I just don't have that kind of space anymore for it. Speaking of Ace, my next book takes place in the country of Clover, and it's called Ace of Hearts. Again, the artwork is done by Fujimaru. Ace is kind of an interesting character. To me, out of all the characters in this series, Ace is easily the most dangerous one of them all. He is the most unstable. In Ace of Hearts, at least, he shows signs that he's pretty trigger happy with a sword. Most of the role holders and the Faceless, who are the other denizens of this world, tend to favor guns. The Bloody Twins use their axes, but they tend to favor guns a lot. Well, Ace has a tendency to kill people, almost like a knee-jerk reaction. He does it just because. But a lot of his stories tend to take place in Clover because his close relationship with Julius usually means that he's on a leash most of the time in the Country of Hearts. But when the land moved to the Country of Clover, again, it's a strange phenomenon for this particular Wonderland. With the Country of Clover game taking place after the Country of Hearts, but going on the assumption that Alice didn't choose somebody to love in the Country of Hearts. The Country of Clover made the amusement park and the clock tower disappear and replaced it with the Tower of Clover and the Forest of Doors. Because Ace is tied to Heart's Castle as the Knight of Hearts, he was pretty much thrown out of the clock tower when the land moved. Ace is a character who's a bit of a rebel. I mentioned before that a lot of the main characters here are role holders. They have a face and they have a specific role that they play in this world. There's a lot of unwritten rules. I don't even know who really makes these rules, but it's rules that these role holders and the Faceless have accepted, except for the ones that rebel against them. Vivaldi said it best when she said that the roles are like a card that you are dealt. You can't change your role, you can't escape it. It's something that you have to do until your clock is either broken. Actually, it's a role that you hold until your clock is broken, however that occurs. Because then either their clock will be repaired by Julius and they'll come back as a whole new person, but I think they still retain the role. But in the event that their clock is so badly damaged that it can't be fixed, then a new Faceless will take on that role and become a role holder, thus gaining a face. Ace wants to escape his role. He acts as Julius's right-hand man in collecting clocks for him to repair. And a lot of these clocks are clocks that Ace himself breaks, mainly because these role holders do have a tendency to get attacked a lot by the Faceless, who see them almost like obstacles, I guess. But when the land moved to the Country of Clover, Ace was thrown out of the clock tower because that's not where he was tied to. And that's where his instability really shines. Ace of Hearts pretty much details Alice, at first really giving him sort of like pity because she and Julius were pretty close friends in this particular story. But she eventually grows to love Ace, and in my opinion she becomes what Julius used to be. She becomes Ace's leash. Really the only one who can control him marginally, because like I said, he's very dangerous. Behind that smile lies the most dangerous man in Wonderland. But Ace is kind of also funny because one of his quirks is that he's perpetually lost. If you've seen a lot of anime, you know that there's usually one directionally challenged character with a very bad sense of direction. Ace has absolutely no sense of direction. He's always lost. If he asks you to, well, actually, if he tells you that he's like going somewhere, he'll usually be heading in the direction away from the place that he's wanting to go to, and he could be lost for quite a few time periods. So forget what you know about directionally challenged characters, because Ace kind of beats it, because he's got absolutely no sense of direction. I think that's the only thing that kind of takes a little bit of his bite off. But I've also compared Ace to a bit of a rabid dog because of his quirks and such, like just randomly attacking and just being trigger happy the way he is. But that's Ace of Hearts. It's what got me really liking the Alice Ace ship. My last one is also a Clover story, and it's the only one that I have of Elliot March, the March Hare. The art is by Soyogo Iwaki, and it's simply called March Hare. The artwork is pretty okay, but Elliot's another one of those characters that I really wish that Fujimaru would do a story for. Elliot's kind of a sweetheart when you really get down to it. He's Blood's right-hand man, or rabbit, despite what he says. But he loves everything carrot-flavored and such. He's a big guy. If you see him in comparison to Alice, who's probably my height, if not a little shorter. But Elliot's a big guy. He and the twins don't get along so well because the twins are usually occupy bodies of young boys. I should probably actually rephrase that. They usually appear in the form of young boys, but they're able to age themselves up to adults if they so choose. Apparently that's something all role holders can do because, like I said before, in place of hearts, they have clocks. And I guess they're able to manipulate their individual flow of time. The twins don't really respect Elliot, but I guess that's really to be expected because this is the Mafia we're talking about here. Elliot pretty much worships the ground that Blood walks on. He thinks the world of him. I think it has something to do with a little backstory that I think was given in one of the Joker series. It might have actually been in Circus and Liar's game, for that matter, which is an Alice in the Country of Joker story. I think the story went that Elliot had a friend whose clock was broken. He didn't want the clockmaker, Julius, to repair that clock, so he hid it. Joker, who doubles as both the leader of the circus that comes around in April season, which is the season of lies, caught wind of what Elliot did and threw him in the jail to be watched over by Black Joker, who serves as the jail warden. I think Blood got him out somehow, and Elliot's been a devoted Mafia guy ever since. In March Hare, Elliot's main rival happens to be Peter, but like I said, Peter can be exhausting, even for me, because he's so pushy. But, I just think it's kind of funny how the two rabbits have a bit of a rivalry going on when it comes to Alice. The one Peter story that's going to be coming out soon is actually called White Rabbit and Some Afternoon Tea. So I'm guessing it's going to judging from the preview that's in the back of Junk Box Stories, it looks like it's going to be it's going to initially take place in our world before Alice was dragged to Wonderland by Peter. So that's going to be... It looks like it's going to be a pretty interesting story. And judging from the artwork, it looks like Fujimaru is going to be heading up the artwork again. So I'm kind of excited for that. Fujimaru will always be my favorite artist. I've read a lot of them. That's about it for that particular series. I have read a lot of them that I don't personally own. my policy is usually to check with my library to see if they have any new books coming in. And then if there is something new, I will usually check and see who the guy they're pairing Alice with is, and if it's something that I usually read them all, even with the guys I don't particularly ship her with, like Joker or Boris or the Bully Twins, mainly because they go for like a threesome kind of deal without getting too, it's only implied. Really, nothing's ever seen or shown. That kind of thing. I would never read a manga series like that, but I don't particularly ship her with the twins, even in their adult forms. I just read them for fun to see what kind of antics Dee and Dum get up to. The Country of Diamonds is the newest edition. However, the only thing that they have out in English right now is actually a light novels, and it looks like it takes place in the past, we're in Wonderland's past. A lot of old characters from Hearts, Clover, and Joker are shown in younger forms and such. They've never met Alice before then, while introducing new characters. I don't know much about Diamonds. I just know that it's pretty much set during the days that Gray Ringmark was an assassin going after Nightmare Godstruck, who is the Caterpillar. Don't ever tell him that. It'll probably torture you somehow. Probably just in your head, because Nightmare is a mind reader, and he's something of a dream walker too. So yeah, a vast majority of stories that I've seen in my library are usually in Hearts or Clover. Circus and Liar's Game is the only stories that I can recall in my exhausted state that took place in the country of Joker, but I can't help but feel like there was another series or so. I think Circus and Liar's Game paired Alice with Blood. I just really can't quite recall, and I'm so exhausted I don't even feel like looking it up. I saw that there's actually a movie based on this series that was out in Japan for quite some time. I actually watched it subtitled because it's never been brought over here and dubbed, and I'm not really expecting it to ever become dubbed at all. The movie was kind of hard to follow. I'm not exactly sure what kind of story they were trying to tell, but it was still kind of a fun thing to watch. I actually wrote a journal a long time ago about if the movie ever got a dub, what voice actors I would want them to be, or even just who I'd want to voice these characters in general. Because the original game was actually voiced itself. Let me find that. It was sometime last year. Maybe it was 2 years ago. No, it had to have been last year, because last year was when I actually started my Afterthoughts journals, and that was definitely the subject of one of them, I believe. I did do Afterthoughts on Ace, simply because of my lovely relationship with him. There's something about him that just draws me, and I just don't know why. Because of how nuts he is under the surface, how unstable he is. Where is it? um... While I'm looking for that, I'm actually planning on doing a video that actually talks about my humanized Godzilla fanfic, Kaiju City, so if you're actually interested in that story, you can find it in my DeviantArt page. I haven't really written anything for it in quite some time because I know where I want to go with it, but I'm struggling with getting there. Wait, here it is. Just to finish up that thought, I'm having a hard time getting to the next plot point in Kaiju City, so I'm just kind of waiting for that to come to me. You had one job, DeviantArt, and that was to get me to the correct journal entry. I've been going for about a half hour. This probably won't take very long. And I was actually wrong. It was not even an Afterthoughts journal. Come on, DeviantArt. For some reason, Chrome is running a little bit slow for me, but I'm trying to get there. Another thing that I've been doing is a series of one-shots based on Sailor Moon. I'm actually starting to collect the read dub for Sailor Moon right now, simply because it's probably not really as much of a part of my childhood as I would have liked, because back in the 90s when it was airing, it was always before school on a school day, and always at the worst time, which was literally when I had to be out the door to go to school. But I've seen snatches of it when I was a kid, and I've seen all the movies. I'm hoping that Viz will get the rights to those movies so they can redub those as well, because the Sailor Moon S movie was always my favorite. Finally, getting back to my theoretical VAs for the Hearts, Clover, Joker, Diamond series. This was actually something that I was chatting about with my friend Rebecca, who also likes the series, but she's pretty much like a hardcore Alice Blood shipper. She's not as open to the others as I am. With this particular list, I had actually forgotten who we chose would be the best fit for Blood and Julius, but for Alice, it would have to be the voice actor for Ruby Red from Ruby by the late great Monty Oum, or Laura Bailey, who is actually my second choice for who was actually my only choice for Vivaldi, if not Alice. The only reason why I chose Laura is because she is definitely most well known for being Lust in Fullmetal Alchemist, but she is also characters like Toru Honda from Fruits Basket, so she can do voices like Alice. Elliot March, I chose J. Michael Tatum, mainly because Elliot looks a whole lot like France from Hetalia. He's just not perverted, and he's got rabbit ears, but the hair is spot on for France, even though the color's a little bit different. The resemblance between Elliot and France is pretty much uncanny. If you compare Fujimaru's design for him. Peter White, I chose Troy Baker, and it's only because in a lot of the manga that I've seen Peter in, his facial expressions scream Ishida Mitsunari from Sengoku Basara, and Peter having white hair doesn't help matters in that regard. Like I said before, Vivaldi would be Laura Bailey, who I think would shine as the Queen of Hearts. Nightmare Gottschalk, I chose Chris Kaysen. I know him best as another Basara character, Takanaka Hanbei. I can't quite remember, since it's been so long, exactly how the two resemble each other. But he's still my choice for Nightmare. I chose Greg Ayres to either be Pierce Villiers, who's the Dormouse, or Dean Dumb. Heck, he can even pull off all three. The only reason why I chose Greg for Dean Dumb, at least one of their kid forms, or even one of their adult forms, is because he can pull them all off, because I've seen him do some of their characters. Probably like the only character that I know of that's not like D or Dumb or Pierce would probably be Kenshin from Basara, Uesugi Kenshin. Ace is a toss-up between Vic Mignogna or Johnny Bosch. I'm kind of leaning towards Johnny a bit because I think he could do a character like Ace no problem. Vic would also be a interesting choice for Ace too, because he's done characters similar to that as well. Boris Ire, I chose Eric Vale for. I just think he would rock as the Cheshire Cat. Great Ringmark, I chose Travis Willingham because Gray, in a sense, kind of reminds me of Roy Mustang from Full Metal Alchemist. And lastly, for Joker, I chose Liam O'Brien, and it's because I've seen Liam pull both heroic characters like Tokugawa Ieyasu from Sengoku Basara and villainous characters like Caius Ballad from Final Fantasy XIII-2 and Lightning Returns. Since Joker is split between White Joker and Black Joker, I think Liam can pull them both off. So that's really all the characters that me and Rebecca had talked about. If we had discussed any of the others from the very expansive cast, I don't remember them, but probably like the only characters that we didn't really talk about were Gowland from the Hearts series. And now that I'm looking at him, I would think a good choice for Gowland, who's actually based on the Duchess, believe it or not. His full name is actually Mary Gowland. He really hates his name, so he just goes by Gowland. And it's supposed to be a play on words with merry-go-round. But looking at Gowland, I think a good choice for him would probably be Greg's brother, Chris. Gowland kind of reminds me a bit of Takeda Shingen from Sengoku Basara, but only minor, but only just a little bit. Oh, Blood. I just remembered. I think a good VA choice for Blood would probably be Robert McCollum, who is Date Masamune and Shinobu Sensui from Yu Yu Hakusho. I think he could pull the Mafia boss off well, but for the life of me, I can't decide who Rebecca and I thought would be a good choice for Julius. I still can't even after looking at him. That's pretty much everything that I really wanted to say. I'm sorry that this video was very long, 40 minutes. If you stuck out this long, I'm giving you a whole bunch of e-cookies, but if not, well, you wouldn't be here to listen to me talk anymore. The next video, I don't know when it will be up, but I do want to talk about Kaiju City. So until next time, this is Janet Parker signing out.